want to interact, and we like to interact with them on...
Gerard Gallant was fired after the game. Florida saying goodbye after his second season as the Panthers coach. He just signed an extension in January. It was also the runner-up for Jack Adams last year. Now, Tom Rowe, who was the GM, will take over as interim head coach. He has no NHL head coaching experience, but he spoke about the changes earlier today.
I think it was the inconsistency of the team. You know, we felt, you know, one game we played really well. You know, last night, first period was the best period of the year, and then second period we collapsed and, you know, lost the game in the second period. So I think that was, you know, what drove it. And, you know, to put it in one word, I would say just the inconsistency so far. We feel we got a great team, and, you know, we want to play a very fast, attacking, aggressive style that the fans want to come to the rink and watch every single night. But the one message we want to get to them is that, you know, we're all together on this thing. We all want to pull in the same direction. And, yeah, change, like you said, is never an easy thing. You disrupt an awful lot of families, and emotions come along with that. But we'll get through it, and, you know, we're going to be a great team, and we just got to get through a little bit of this adversity.
And with that, we want to welcome George Richards to the show via Skype. He's a reporter for the Miami Herald and joins us now to talk about this. Man, you cover the Panthers. I want to get your reaction to the news. Were you shocked? Were you a little surprised? Or were you expecting a move like this soon?
I was a little surprised with the timing of it. I didn't think that the Panthers were going to do it this soon. You know, just in talking with some players and even, you know, Gerard Gallant, they were feeling it last week after that Philadelphia game, and in the press conference, in the conference call today, the Panthers even said they had a meeting after that 20th game against Philadelphia, and it seemed like Gerard's fate had been sealed with that loss to the Flyers. And had they won last night in Carolina, we wouldn't be talking right now. We'd be talking about tomorrow's game against the Chicago Blackhawks. Instead, we're talking about Gerard Gallant being fired.
What, George, did they expect from Gerard Gallant this year that he wasn't doing?
Winning, I guess. I mean, you know, they felt like this team was, you know, too inconsistent in the games. This team hasn't won more than 2 games in a row all season. They haven't been able to put together a winning streak and get back into that playoff conversation. They're still only a couple points out. They've got 11 wins, 10 losses, and an overtime defeat. This team's been very good in overtime. That's really helped them out with additional points. So maybe, you know, the management is thinking that maybe that the Panthers have more points, more wins than maybe they deserve. But they're a very good team in overtime, and that's definitely helped them.
George, but what about the fact no Huberdeau? Ukestad has been out most of the time. Barkov hasn't been great. Ekblad hasn't been great. I mean, this doesn't all fall on the lap of the coach. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of things that are going on there that are beyond the control of the head coach.
Yeah, let's not kid ourselves. This wasn't just about what happened on the ice. This isn't about this team, you know, being 11-10 or whatever they are. You know, Gerard Gallant has his way of coaching and has his style, and I think the Florida Panthers changed things up last year over the offseason, and this is a different team than they were last year. And Gerard Gallant didn't agree with all the moves and was vocal about it. You know, made it known that this really isn't his style of a hockey team. And here we are, you know, and I think that now they've got Tom Rowe as the coach of the team, so they're hoping that everything, you know, is simpatico and everything comes together. But we'll just have to wait and see. Gerard Gallant was very popular, not only among Panther fans, but among Florida Panther players. A lot of them are very upset right now. A lot of their big names are upset right now. There's been a lot of change around this organization. We'll see if it is for the better. Time will tell.
George, what do we know about the timeline last night? The game is played. We know Gerard Gallant did the post-game media scrum. Then there are pictures on Twitter of him getting into a cab, the optics of which are not good. What do we know about how this went down?
Well, the Florida Panthers have admitted as much. I mean, they know this is not a good look. What had happened was the Panthers lose the game 3-2. Gerard Gallant goes out to talk to the media, talk to the rights holder, Fox Sports Florida. Comes back down that long hallway in Carolina, and Tom Rowe's waiting for him, says, "We got to talk." They clear the coach's room. Tom Rowe apparently has owner Vinny Viola on the phone, tells him, you know, we're going to make a change here. Apparently Vinny told him, you know, I love you, man, but we got to make a change. So they get Gerard Gallant's stuff off the bus. The team was heading to the airport going to Chicago. Gerard Gallant not going to Chicago anymore, so he needs to get a ride to either the hotel or the airport. The Panthers, to their credit, called for a car. I mean, it's Sunday night in Raleigh. The car didn't show up. A taxi cab did. Gerard said, I'm not waiting around anymore. I'm getting in this taxi cab, and an AP photographer just happened to be standing there getting it all.
Yeah, I think that's what we call an awkward moment in the business, right? Definitely.
Yeah,
you feel for the head coach a little bit there. But I want to talk to you about the decision to have Tom Rowe then come in as interim head coach. Why him?
Well, I think this has been in the works for a while, and then a couple players that I've talked to off the record felt like they knew this was coming too. That when Tom Rowe came in as associate general manager after Christmas last year, it was announced after the new year officially to be the associate general manager, and then he became the general manager after last season. I think a lot of players kind of figured that was going to be the natural progression, that Tom Rowe wanted to come back and coach this team if and when the Panthers faltered, and the ownership made a decision that they had seen enough and put Tom behind the bench. A lot of people I've talked to felt like it was a foregone conclusion. If it didn't happen this week, it was going to happen next month or a couple of months down the road. Gerard Gallant kind of knew it, so. Tom Rowe was the only choice. Somebody asked, did you look into hiring anybody else? No, Tom Rowe. He was going to be the guy to do this, and it's his job to run with it now. He's the interim coach. It's a little bit of a tryout for him behind the bench this year. He's got plenty of games left for the Florida Panthers to do something.
George, I want to ask you about the approach of management with the use of analytics. They've brought in a couple of assistant GMs there, right, in Eric Joyce and with Steve Wehrer. How much of a factor is that in what they're trying to do moving forward? And what type of things? So the analytics is a big description. What are the type of things they're looking for there?
Well, they're looking for possession. They're looking for the way the defense moves the puck out of the zone, which creates possession and, in theory, should create offensive chances. It should create, all kinds of things. And the way they're looking at it is, these are the kind of players that we want. And that's one thing Gerard Gallant complained about last week was after that Philadelphia game, there wasn't enough toughness in the lineup for the Florida Panthers to do anything when Wayne Simmons was chirping around. And, you've got Gudas, knocking out Vincent Trocheck. And Gerard Gallant publicly complained about it. Less than a week later, he's no longer the coach of the Panthers. So there's no question that Gerard Gallant is more of an old school coach, more on site, more on what I see on the ice than the numbers that you're handing us. But I think Gerard was open to some of the stuff that he thought that was meaningful, that he thought helped hockey players on the ice. There's a lot of guys that are just going to look at Corsi. They're going to look at different players and what they do. And they may not be able to play very well. So, there's a whole lot that goes into analytics, and Gerard Gallant was more of an old school guy. Show me what you got on the ice. I don't want to see what you got on a sheet of paper.
George, I'm sure you are a very busy guy right now, so thank you so much for taking the time to join us here today.
No problem. Welcome to Chicago. You like the
yeah, the background. I think you're in the hotel.
I'm in O'Hare Airport. It's really classy.
Well, thank you. Man, we've got reporters everywhere, all out there in the world.
He can take a flight from there to downtown Chicago. He might get there sooner, the way the traffic is from that area sometimes.
So true. Let's talk more about this, though, because this is such a big deal. It's the first, coaching change so far this season. I think it surprised a lot of people, myself included. What was your reaction?
Well, it was kind of a mixed bag for me. It was surprised because by normal standards, 103 points and an Atlantic Division title for a franchise that, quite frankly, hasn't had a lot of success in 20-some-odd years is pretty darn good. And you would think that would buy you a little bit more time moving forward, certainly more than 21 games or so when you don't have a Jonathan Huberdeau top line forward, a Nick Bukestad top six forward, when your two best players, Barkov and Ekblad, are not playing really up to their standards at this point of the first 20 games. So you would think that would buy you some time to kind of figure things out and get moving in the right direction and maybe get some players back in the lineup. But, as George said, and I think we've talked about it here, all the different analysts and all of us who've talked about the Florida Panthers in the last 6 or 8 months, Clearly, the ownership group there wants to go in a different direction. That's why they kind of moved Dale Talent into a different area. They brought Tom Rowe in. They have these two younger guys that are, just for lack of a better term, analytic guys in Eric Church and Eric Joyce and Steve Ware, and they have a lot to say with what's going on with this team. And they made a lot of changes in the offseason to every area of their organization, on the ice, behind the bench in terms of assistant coaches, trainers, scouting, all kinds of things. They are wanting to go in a different direction. So when you look at the big picture of that and you look where Gerard Gallant fits in, he was kind of an old school or an old guard, even though he'd only been there a little while, and even though he'd had success, things weren't going so well in the first 21 games. Management wants to go in a different direction anyway, so thus you have this move. We'll see. I think it's one of these things. If the team does well as we move forward, this will kind of be forgotten.
Right.
If the team struggles and if things start to go the other way, people will look at it and they will say, hey, why did you fix something that wasn't really broken? So
exactly.
Time will tell how it goes. They're in the midst of, you see here, a long road trip now. That they just played the first game in Carolina.
Yeah, welcome Tom Rowe.
Yeah, not a lot of practice time in there.
And the players aren't happy.
And the players, I think they
like Gerard Gallant. They're not happy.
They like Dale Talent as well.
Exactly.
And so it is a different feel there. But at the end of the day, these guys, they have long-term contracts, many of these players now, which again is on the new management group. It is up to these players to be professional and go out and turn this thing around. But here's the bigger picture for me with the Florida Panthers. They still have Barkov, who's a legit #1 center. They still have Ekblad, who's a legit #1 defender. Those are the spikes in the ground that you build a winning franchise around. They're very young players, but I like that. I like a lot of the guys in their organization. This is going to be kind of a bumpy year, I think, with all these changes. But at the end of the day, I still like what they have right now with their group. So maybe it doesn't show this year, but this team still has a chance to be very good down the road. But I don't like the way this unfolded, and certainly the optics of having a guy in a cab in Raleigh, which I don't even know how you get a cab at that arena, is tricky.
I get it. You want the management with the same philosophy as the coaching staff. I understand the desire for that.
Yeah.
But I got a better philosophy here. It's called wins.
Winning.
That's what he did.
Yeah.
He won hockey games last year, over 100 points. They won a division title. Jamie, you said it, runner-up for Jack Adams. This year, I just saw them play last weekend. They swept Ottawa and the Rangers.
Not bad.
Back to back.
Not bad.
Two of the better teams in the Eastern Conference, and now they're starting to get healthy. They lose one game, and he gets fired?
And
I don't get it.
And especially, Steve, again, when you factor in no Huberdeau, Bukestad had been out for a while. A lot of other
didn't have Jokinen for a while.
A lot of Jokinen out. A lot of other changes. To
I get it. I understand.
Remade their defense as well. Think about that. And like some people are saying, well, their defense is light, it's a little soft. Well, they've remade it. So, and the fact they went out and tried to they got Dylan McElrath tells you that they want to have a little bit more toughness back there. It's a thing, I think the job of managers in professional sports and management teams, as the team starts to get better, that's when the job gets tougher. Because it's easier to go up there. With the first overall pick, we take Connor McDavid.
It's unfair expectations. Unfair expectations.
But I'm just saying, as we go along,
it changes.
It gets harder for the team to figure out those pieces. But back to the main point for me, I just think you get more than 21 games.
Yeah. And they can build their team however they want. Analytics, whatever. They're going to be judged on wins and losses.
That's true.
It's the timing and the fact that Gerard Gallant did a good job and was a winner.
How many points back?
And 2 points out of a wild card position. Great point.
Yeah.
That's the problem I have with it. He did a good job.
At the end of the day,
he didn't deserve this.
Here's the good news for Gerard Gallant. He's well-liked. He did a good job. He will get another opportunity down the road somewhere. There's no question about that. And for the Florida Panthers management group, for Tom Rowe and everybody there, if the team does well, like I said, this will be forgotten. If the team struggles and does poorly, well, then everybody will talk about it. And I go back to Chicago way back when Denny Savard was fired after 4 games, and they brought in Joel Quenneville, and everybody's like, oh, this isn't fair to Denny, and Denny's really brought these young guys along. Well, it wasn't really fair to Denny, but in the end, that worked out pretty well for the Chicago Blackhawks, and Joel Quenneville has done an unbelievable job. And Denny Savard has actually found a real nice role for himself in the ambassadorship in the Chicago Blackhawks organization. So winning is what matters. We'll see if the Florida Panthers can win down the road.
Well, more on the story later on in the show. Elsewhere,